wish people knew about space they don't ask you about?
As you said, a 23-year career, I've been, I think, asked just about every question, so it's hard to say. It's something I wish people would ask, because they ask all the questions, and I wish we could talk about some of those things and you had a chance to ask all those questions as well. But I think the thing that amazes me the most about space and human spaceflight is the ability of humans to adapt to living in that environment so quickly. That was my experience.
We were just talking backstage about what your life was like coming back onto Earth. I've seen the video of when you first landed. What was that like, trying to walk on Earth for the first time again?
That's always hard. It's challenging. Everybody manages that a little bit differently. For me, it was easier for short missions. A couple of weeks in space, no problem. It's pretty easy to walk around your spaceship when you get home. But after 6.5 months in space, I found it very difficult to do anything but lie on my back for at least 4 hours before my head stopped spinning. But I've also seen somebody do basically an obstacle course after a year in space. So everybody reacts differently to that recovery and coming back to gravity.
And I wanted to ask specifically about the International Space Station, the 6-month mission you did. Missions 55 and 56. I'm curious because, people who don't know what that actually is, it's a low Earth orbit base station run by the US, Russia, Canada, Europe, Japan. It's been occupied continuously since 2000. It was a feat of human engineering and international cooperation. It was considered the most expensive object ever built, with a $150 billion price tag just to build it and launch it. What has been the benefit of the ISS to taxpayers and to governments?
That's probably not enough time for us to talk about those benefits. I think what's important to realize is that, in fact, as you mentioned, ISS was in space for the last 25 years with humans on board, and I was lucky enough to see the whole evolution of that from the very first module that was launched until the time now where we're talking about retiring the International Space Station and building a spacecraft to replace it to carry on those activities. And in fact, there have been space stations before ISS. So to say what has been the benefit, I mean, the cell phone that people are holding in their hands is one of the benefits of human spaceflight, but also spaceflight in general. So everything that we do, every asset we put in space, not only is a technological advancement, but also for us on the ISS and any human platform, it's a way for us to learn how humans live and work more efficiently and effectively off of the planet. I think the ultimate goal of mine, and I think of many astronauts, is that humans should not be a single planet species. We should be multiplanetary if we can, or at least start to understand what it takes to live in places away from our own surface right now. And we finally have the technology to be able to start to do that. I
certainly will be asking you about that toward the end. I'm curious, so yes, the ISS will be decommissioned by 2030. If I'm being honest, from my vantage point, it feels like a very depressing state of the world that it's going to be decommissioned. What do you think is going to be lost without having the ISS?
I'm not sure anything will be lost, because we've really taken advantage and I think tried to squeeze every aspect out of it that we can to help us do the next thing. And the next thing for us as humans is to go back to the moon and explore to Mars. And that's been a challenge. NASA has been the sort of the cornerstone of human exploration for the last several decades, and will continue to do that. But NASA has never been great at doing more than one thing at once or at the same time. So NASA is working and has been trying to enable a low Earth economy, which is what has motivated companies like mine and others to compete to replace the ISS. We want to become service providers for an anchor tenant like NASA and allow NASA then to do the next exploration phase, which is return to the moon with permanent human presence there, and then eventually onto Mars. So I'm not sure anything's lost. I think everything has been gained, and to be honest, ISS, the fact that we're allowing it to continue to orbit till 2030 is a feat in of itself. It's past its design life. It's still working well, but some components of the space station have challenges, and it's time to move on.
I mean, the theme of this conference is European sovereignty. What do you think it means to have countries going it alone rather than cooperating together? And I mean, to your point, the ISS will be replaced with commercial space station. Are there benefits to having these private companies really step in and finance these solutions?
Yeah, we see great benefit to it. If you look at the model that the International Space Station provided, it was primarily 16 nations that participated in that development of that asset, but it is primarily operated by the U.S. and Russia, along with Japan and the European Space Agency as well has a module there. But it really doesn't have a lot of. I mean, aside from those 16 nations, it's not like it covers the world in terms of participation. By having a commercial space station, what we believe we're creating is access to space by not only private individuals and institutions, but also sovereign nations. And I can say that in the work that we're doing building up to the launch of our spacecraft and the eventual follow-on with the next phase of that we see great interest internationally, multiple sovereign nations that weren't part of the International Space Station Consortium are now have access to a low Earth orbit platform, and that's the service we want to provide. That allows humans to start to explore off of the planet that didn't formerly have that opportunity.
I think for those of you who are not familiar with what VAST does, think of how SpaceX dramatically reduced the cost and the hurdles to launching rockets. VAST is trying to do that with space stations. There has never been a commercial space station yet. Why are you confident that VAST will be the first one?
Again, a lot to unpack there. We are a company that came online just in the last few years. We have our design, engineering, and manufacturing facilities all under one roof in Long Beach, California. So we do have competitors. They've taken a different approach. Some of those are more traditional, similar to the way the ISS was built under government contracts. We have one founder and one person who is supporting the company to allow us to build and launch and send the first crew to our spacecraft that should be launched, that will be launched next year. So we're on track to do that. We think that having everything under one roof, we have control over our supply chain, we have control over our design, our engineering, our manufacturing. That allows us to pivot, to react quickly, and actually tailor our hardware to exactly what our needs are and what we want our capabilities to be. So we plan to be first to space, and it's hard to argue with being first to space and showing that you have capability to put humans in your spacecraft.
Can you walk us through some of the concrete examples of how VAST has been able to reduce the cost and really speed up the production of space stations?
Well, yeah, I'll just reflect on some of the things I just said. If you look at a model that we can compare to, if you look at the SpaceX model, right, that's a company that essentially put everything under one roof, did all their own design, manufacturing, engineering, and started building their products and operating them themselves. We're following the same model. We have everything under our own control, and that helps with efficiency. It provides an ability for us to make changes as needed, and we know everything that's going in the spacecraft, so we have configuration control of every aspect of that vehicle, and we can actually, mid-assembly or mid-development, make changes that otherwise might be locked up in a contract or a standard government contract that would not be possible in the past.
And when you joined VAST, there was no actual product, right?
So I joined VAST in December of 2023. So we are less than 2 years from that time. And when I joined the company, we were doing a design trade between using stainless steel and aluminum. And today, I can walk into our facility and see our flight hardware, our flight capsules, our flight module in the facility, fully assembled. The primary structure is complete, and we're now starting our secondary phase, secondary structures and integration. So we've come a long way in less than 2 years, and launch is slated for next year as well, that spacecraft.
I know we talked in the past too about how the design of Haven 1 is going to be quite different from what you're used to. To give the audience a bit of an example, I mean, the International Space Station is just 1 yard shy of being the size of a US football field. There's 6 sleeping quarters, 2 bathrooms, a gym, a 360-degree view bay window. In 24 hours, the space station makes 16 orbits of the Earth, traveling through 16 sunrises and sunsets. Am I missing any other fun facts that I should be including?
Nope, those are all good fun facts.
Good. What is VAST going to look like? Because from my vantage point, it looks like a really sleek hotel.
Yeah. It does, and there's a reason for that. We learned a lot from space station. What we learned is it's really important to integrate hardware and requirements early on, because otherwise, if you look at ISS, for any of you that have seen pictures of the inside of ISS, it looks like it's growing from the inside more to the inside. So it gets smaller and smaller internally every year because there's so much hardware, experiments, fluid connectors, cables, you name it, it's built into the space station, and it gets smaller all the time, especially with the cargo that we send up, and NASA likes to hoard equipment, right? It's really expensive to launch things to space, so everything that goes to space pretty much stays in space, whether it's working or broken. We like to keep spare parts. Our spacecraft is designed from the conception to basically have everything integrated behind the walls and the panels. So we've tried to make it more human-centric, more focused on creating an experience that is comfortable and familiar to astronauts, so that they become more efficient and effective in their work and actually feel a little bit more like they're connected to the planet. Because my own experiences of being in space, and I think it's consistent with other astronauts, is that when you are one of 6 humans representing 7 billion people, and you're floating above the planet at 400 kilometers looking down, you can really feel disconnected from humanity. So we're trying to build in some more of that that familiarity with Earth. Like, what are we, like, in what ways?
Yeah.
So if you, I don't think we have any images of our spacecraft, but the tones we use, they're very sort of Earth-based tones, very warm tones, smooth surfaces, wood-looking, wood paneling features. So all the things that give us those connections to the planet and the dirt and the air and the things that we experience as humans on Earth. The space station, on the other hand, is very utilitarian. Like, it's just nothing but cables and wires and computers, and that's really not, it doesn't create a homey feel. The only way we make it feel like home is by plastering pictures of our loved ones around our sleeping quarters, and that's about it. That's all you can really do.
Well, and you also helped inform the design of the sleeping quarters. Can you tell the audience a bit about what that was, how to make feel like you're actually sleeping back on Earth?
Yeah, so one of the things that I experienced in space was that it's very difficult to sleep, and other astronauts will express this as well. And typically what we do is we bungee cord ourselves, elastic bands and sleeping bags, and we strap ourselves to the wall. And what you see is astronauts getting multiple straps and making those tighter and tighter to feel like they're being pressed against the bed, because when you're in space, everything floats, like everything. So sleeping is no different than being awake. The difference is you turn the light off, but you don't really feel like you're in bed. So what we came up with was a way to have distributed force on the body that would sort of simulate the feel of gravity. In space, your muscles never really relax and your limbs don't relax. So if you just float in the middle of the module, your legs are slightly bent, your arms are slightly bent. But if you think about when you lay in a bed, your muscles pretty much relax. Even though your arms aren't straight or they're not in any specific position, gravity forces you to relax your muscles. So we created a system with my inputs that is an adjustable bladder, air bladder, that you can inflate, that will basically press you against the surface of the bed to emulate that feeling of gravity, so that your limbs and your body can actually relax. And I hope that'll make a difference for people sleeping, because it doesn't always work out well in space. You have good months and bad months of sleeping, for sure.
I highly recommend everyone go and look at the videos of the sleeping quarters too. Can you tell the audience a bit about some of the milestones that are to come? And the original intention was to launch this year, and it's been delayed a bit till next year. Can you walk us through a bit of also why that's been delayed a bit, and how VAST is dealing with some of those technical problems? Sure.
I mean, I'll just start by saying flying in space is non-trivial, and so it takes time. The fact that we've gotten as far as we have in less than 2 years, I think, is pretty incredible to be launching a spacecraft next year. What we are launching this year, in fact, in just under a couple of weeks, is our demonstration satellite. It's probably a meter on a side, plus the addition of a solar array, and on that satellite we're testing all of our primary and critical components for our spacecraft, our propulsion system, our guidance and navigation system, our home-built computers, So all of the key communication, power control for the solar array, so all the things that are important to work on our spacecraft that we're launching for humans next year is being launched into space on a satellite this year in just a few weeks. So we'll get a chance to test all of that out, and then those components get transitioned over to our flight hardware for humans, and then we build upon that and mature that. So making great progress. That spacecraft that's launching is actually loaded on the a SpaceX Falcon rocket right now down at the Cape, and we're just waiting for the team to send it up to orbit, and then we're all focusing on outfitting the secondary structures within our module and putting that in space next.
And VAST has talked about how its customers will be governments and private astronauts. What is a private astronaut?
A private astronaut is what I understand to be a private astronaut is any individual who has decided they have enough discretionary income for themselves to go to space, but also to do meaningful work. So I've met and interviewed all of the astronauts that have flown private missions to date with NASA. And each of them has gone to space with the intent to do meaningful science and work. So don't just think of people wanting to go for a joyride to space. People that go to space, even for a short period of time, 10 days, they want to do something that makes sense for them and is meaningful to them. Many of them represent institutions, organizations, hospitals back on Earth where they're doing research and experiments that will benefit those organizations or those people. So a private astronaut can be anybody, but we also, the company is also intending to work very closely with sovereign nations to allow other those groups to stand up their own human spaceflight programs as well.
Now, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask. VAST has talked about putting people into space permanently, building human habitats on Mars. You mentioned this kind of multiplanetary existence. Can I be frank? Why do we need that?
Why don't we need that? Because single planet species don't last. The dinosaurs are a perfect example. We've never had this much investment and capability in the world than we have now to create access to space for humans. And I think it's really important that we take advantage of it. This is what we do as humans. We explore. We continue to explore our own planet, and we will continue to explore off the planet. There are many resources in space for us. We know there are resources on the surface of the moon. There are resources in asteroids. It all seems a little like pie in the sky right now, but the reality is we will get there. Launch costs come down, access to space comes down, our ability to return those materials to Earth and also use those resources in space will just increase. Every minute that we spend in space, we learn more about how to do that efficiently and effectively.
My very last question is, will you be on that first space station with VAST?
Never say never. There's a non-zero chance that I'll get a chance to go to space again, but we need to protect that asset and make sure that what we have in space for returning customers is exactly the same thing that the first crew sees. So we'll see.